Well, Zelos has just released their latest watch. They've dropped it onto their website. There's still a few models available, and this time it's their re-release of their Hammerhead. Hello, you're watching James. My name's James, you're watching me, and I am talking about watches. And today I'm talking about the Singapore micro brand Zelos, and I'm sure that you've heard of them before because they are one of the most well-known micro brands and one of the most popular micro brands that have come out in the last sort of few years or more. And I'm excited to feature their brand new Hammerhead release that was dropped a few days ago on their website. Now, there are a few variations of it and there are still actually a few available, which is a bit of a surprise to me. And I really wanted to try and get this review of this watch out prior to the actual release, but it arrived a little bit late, so I do apologize, but I'm trying to get the video done now. And it is a watch which, well, it is rather incredible and amazing, especially the design and the dial, and it is exactly what you would expect from Zelos. And speaking of Zelos, I'm going to get some actual opportunity to get hands-on with a lot more Zelos watches shortly because, well, you're going to have to stay tuned because shortly I'm heading over to Singapore specifically to see watches, specifically to speak to people about watches and to make videos about watches and my time there. And Zelos is going to be featuring. I'm going to be going to some stores that feature a lot of Zelos watches. So stay tuned. In a few weeks or so, some videos about me in Singapore, looking at watches, seeing watches, speaking to brand owners about watches are going to be coming soon. But today, of course, I'm focusing on this specific Hammerhead release. And the one that I have got hands-on with is the black case and bracelet with the blue mosaic dial. And I probably wasn't sure if that would be my pick if I was able to pick one, but the dial is so incredible that, well, I'm really keen to be able to share it with you today. Now, unfortunately, this one is only loaned to me. I don't get to keep it. I will be sending it back shortly. But that's okay, it's great to get hands on with another Zelos. But if you're not interested in this particular model, which I'm pretty sure is still available at the time of making this video, you will see that there are a few other variations. But all of them are a titanium watch. They all have sapphire crystals, sapphire bezel inserts. They all contain the Seiko NH35 automatic movement. They all have 300 meters of water resistance. And that titanium, well, that's grade 2 titanium. And in this case, the watch that I'm showing you today is obviously, well, that titanium is covered up. But for me, that's actually probably a good thing because I struggle to connect with the feel and the look of titanium. So this kind of takes that issue away for me, and it has been quite interesting then to have hands-on with this one because of that. But of course, another thing that is no different between the 4 different variations is the size of the watch, because the case of this watch directly from left to right is 44 millimeters. The height is 14.6 millimeters, including that crystal. It has a lug-to-lug of 48.7 millimeters. But it does have male end links, but they do curve down a lot, so it doesn't really make much of a difference. But that total length is 52 millimeters. The lug width starts off at 22 at the case, but then tapers all the way down to 20 at the clasp. And although this one is titanium, it still actually has a little bit of weight to it because it weighs in at 152 grams. And that weight is probably another reason why I've actually connected with this watch over other titanium watches that I've featured before, because it does still have some wrist presence. But that wrist presence isn't excessive for the size of this watch because that titanium has brought it down to that nice, comfortable weight for me. Oh, hello there. Sorry to interrupt this review of this lovely Zelos that I'm wearing today. I'm currently down at my local beach taking some of that lovely B-roll footage, trying to get some ocean in the background, trying to get some stones in the background, trying to get this lovely mosaic watch dial out into the sunshine. But I thought whilst I'm here, I thought I might just pop into the video and just ask, could you possibly subscribe to this channel? I put a huge amount of effort into making all these review videos, talking about watches, and I absolutely love doing it, but it really does make a big difference to me and certainly gives me more motivation to keep making these videos if you do subscribe. I certainly would appreciate it. But let's get back into this particular review of actually one of the nicest Zelos watches that I've had hands on with. But of course, when you see this watch, well, at least for me anyway, the thing that stands out the most is that mother of pearl mosaic blue dial. And then the second thing that stands out to me, almost as much as that mosaic dial, is the blue that has been used in both the markers and the hands. It's a slightly different sort of powdery blue. It's quite different. It then adds to a lot of interesting lume factor when you turn the lights off. Zelos is known well for their lume, but it creates a nice, interesting contrast, yet still fits in nicely with that blue mother of pearl. That mosaic pattern is, well, it really is eye-catching. It then captures the light when you're outside too. It is something that creates not only an interesting pattern and an interesting effect, but it details that draw me to looking at this dial, staring at this dial, considering sort of how they have put it together. And to be honest, I look at this and I think, how exactly did they manufacture this? It makes me think a little bit more than just, that's a pretty dial. It provokes some further thought from me. And you'll see that those markers beyond that sort of blue look to the lume are also applied and stand up off the dial a little bit, creating some further depth and elements to it. Almost a little bit of a shading effect sometimes at certain angles depending on the light. The date wheel down at the 6 almost disappears because it is somewhat color matched in with that mother of pearl, which is nice. But it creates a relatively legible, but not entirely legible watch. I've not had any issues with reading the time on this one, but definitely I think when it comes to Zelos watches in general, design is certainly at the forefront. Legibility is certainly a part of that sort of design, but we're looking at interest factor and beauty and design and difference of that dial beyond purely being legible. The sapphire crystal is double domed, and of course I think it must have a heap of AR coating too, because you can look straight through at that mosaic really well. But what I find quite interesting is this section between the crystal and the bezel, because there are some angles to it. It creates a really interesting effect that I think then reflects quite nicely with the angular case, tying the dial through across to the case, which is nice. But what has been a standout for me is two further features, and they are both the actions of the bezel and the actions of the crown. Because let me just put this up against my microphone and let you hear the bezel action. It reminds me a little bit of a Seiko, a slightly muted sound and feel, but it seems to have just a little bit more to it. Really great bezel action. I'm really impressed with it. And the same thing can be said about the crown. The crown is large, down there at the 4 o'clock, but it's the action of it. Unwinding it feels really nice. Putting some charge into that Seiko NH35 is really nice. In fact, it has a nicer winding experience than I've ever experienced of any of the other Seiko models that I've chosen, and I'm not sure if they've done anything to the movement, or maybe it's just the manufacturer of the crown tube, or whatever they've done, whatever it is that they've done, well, they've just done it very well, and it has stood out to me because when I action this, when I screw this, when I move this, it's this feeling of, ooh, wow, that's nice. Now, because the case and the bracelet have this black coating, it takes away from sort of any finishes, but it then adds a softness to it. So there has all these angles on this Hammerhead case that we sort of know already. They've released many of these models before, so I think a lot of us are already aware of this case design, but the black version of it softens it a little bit, softens the visual elements of the case, but also softens the feel of the case in hand, on wrist. And that continues with the bracelet too, because it does feel soft. It does feel soft on wrist and in hand. And then of course that continues further to the clasp. But the thing that I like about the clasp beyond the design of it, beyond the feel of it, is that push button on the fly mechanism. Wow, you press that Zelos logo, then it gives you that extra little bit of movement of the bracelet itself, and well, it feels quite good. It feels nicer and a little bit more premium than other on-the-fly adjustment clasps that I've had hands-on with because, well, pushing a button does feel quite good. And as you look past the clasp, you look at that case back, well, there's a stark contrast between that case back and the rest of the watch because it is in steel and it is polished and it is sandblasted with that Hammerhead design that again we would expect from this particular model. But it is nice that it really jumps off the back of this watch, probably because it's in contrast with the black of the rest of it. Every single time I get hands-on with a Zelos watch, I'm impressed by both the quality of the watches, the designs of the watches, but really I think it's the details that are put into these watches. This one has so many details that have impressed me, just beyond that lovely mother of pearl mosaic dial. But well, that does tend to be the feature of this one, but it is certainly more than that has captured my attention, and I'm so happy that I've been able to get an opportunity to get some time with this one, and I'm really looking forward to getting over to Singapore to see some of their other sort of units that they have available, so I can see their complete range. So stay tuned to the channel for my trip to Singapore to see more micro brand watches, including Zelos. But whilst you wait for that, well, you know, I do have other watch related content you could watch next.